Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and in this video I want to show you how I paint the scales on my second Stegadon for my Lollipop Lizards, my new Seraphon army. And first up I start with a contrast paint, like I often do, and this one is the Blood Angels Red, and you can see I apply that at the edge of the scales. Then I grab my Yanden Yellow, another contrast paint, and you can see I'm just using plenty of paint here so that it's really nice and smooth. And I just use my brush, this is a beat up old brush, to mix the two colors together. So it's like a really quick and easy wet blend. I'll be adding stuff to the scales later on, so it doesn't matter if it's not completely smooth. But I do like that they just mix a little bit. So that's why I'm doing the wet blend here without being, too careful about the whole thing. The green color I'm using is also contrast paint, and this is a Warp Lightning, which is also the color I use as a base for my orc skin. I have a tendency to go back to certain colors, and these three are some of my favorites. And then I just repeat the process on the other side of the scales. So I have this nice gradient from red to yellow to green. And I mean, after I came up with the color scheme, it dawned on me that it looks sort of like a traffic light, but I don't care. I think the colors work well anyway. So this is my traffic light Stegadon. Then I take a contrast paint called Gorgrunter Fur. It's like a nice, rich, warm brown. And I use that to put a little bit of shading in the recesses on the red parts of the scales. It's a little bit tricky to see here, but I hope you can get the sense of it adding a little bit of saturation to the colors. And then I do the same for the yellow scales by adding some Gryph-hound Orange, also contrast paint. Again, giving it a bit more saturation and also putting a bit of shadow between the scales so that when I highlight it, they will really pop. That is the intention anyway. For the green, I go with Achillean Green, which is, it's not very green. It's more like it's sort of turquoise blue-green, but I think it matches the Warp Lightning pretty well, and I use that also to give a little bit of shading. Then I take an orange color, just a completely ordinary basic orange color, and use that as my first layer of highlights on the red parts of the scales. And I'm not being too careful with it. As you can see, I'm just putting it where I think it looks nice. I'm not being too fussed about where the light would hit the scales or anything, but because this is going to be a toony look anyway. For those of you who have actually built a Stegadon yourself, you'll notice that the square hole in the back here is missing. That's where you would put the howdah with like the engine of the gods on top or whatever. But I really I don't like the howdah very much. I think it takes up too much space on the dino. So I just sculpted in some scales using, I think I used a Magic Sculpt or something. It was pretty easy because you have the original scales as a sort of base, and then you can just fill it out. So then I use a mixture of Tesseract Glow and a neon green pigment from Green Stuff World, and I've mixed those two sort of like an ordinary paint, and then I use that as a highlight on the green. And this is something I usually put on all sorts of green things that I paint, both because I think it looks cool as it is, and because, as some of you probably know, it has the added benefit of glowing in the dark. And glow in the dark dinos, right? What could be better? And I know I'm never going to be playing them under a UV light, but I know that they would glow if you did so, and that just makes me happy. So there you go. I'm a bit silly, but there you go. Then I take my Flashgate Yellow and I use that for the last highlight on the red, and also as a highlight on the yellow parts here, as you can see. And I actually quite like Flashgate Yellow. It has this like warm, nice, basic yellow tone to it, and I use it a lot, especially for highlighting. You can also see I use it a tiny bit on some of the green scales. I try not to do it too much because I want the green scales to be really green, but like a tiny bit of yellow here and there will just give them a final highlight that makes them pop. And then the last bit of highlighting I do on the scales is with a bit of Wraithbone, and I'm being a little bit careful with it because I don't want to desaturate the whole thing and make the yellow look really pale. I want it to be like a really nice, clean, bright yellow that will just sort of pop. And then a tiny drop of Wraithbone at some of the green scales, again, just to make them pop and look like they're sort of catching a little bit of light on the scales, but nothing too much at all. And here you can see what it looks like so far. As you can see, it's definitely not done yet. I have a lot of the work to put into this model still, especially on like the the skinks and the weapon options and stuff on his back. I haven't quite decided which way I want to go with that yet. So that's why I started with the dino, because I knew I wanted to paint the dino, and then I'm sort of procrastinating with his crew, because I don't think they're as much fun to paint. There is just something immensely satisfying about painting a big dino. I'm hoping to get my hands on a Carnosaur at one point, because it's like he's like a Warhammer T-Rex. What could be better, right? I really want one. I'm not sure I even need one for my army at this point, but on the other hand, when do you not need a T-Rex, right? That's, that's the big question. So I should probably get one at some point. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, that it was somehow useful to you. And if you have any questions or comments or anything, please let me know, and I will do my best to get back to you. If you want to stay up to date on my painting projects, you are more than welcome to follow me as Dyson Demons on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to show off your own painted models or your building projects or terrain projects or whatever, you can also join Dyson Demons showroom on Facebook. It's a nice little community where people are really friendly and helpful, I think. So I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for watching this one, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye!